You know, you start with a basic egg shape, and you need a center line. And then, you know, where the, about where the eyes would be. And, you know, this is usually what I start with.
He just draws them.
I remember
He's not actually.
one of your, I guess it was a pretty early work with, it wasn't Bond voted, but the one about mermaid thing.
Oh, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Now, were you an embellisher on that story, or did you?
No, Vaughn wrote it and I drew it.
Oh, you drew it?
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, I was drawing in a deliberately cartoony style.
That's why I asked, because
Yeah.
it did have more, it wasn't as realistically proportions and such as. Did you enjoy that?
Very much, yeah.
Was there ever a project that you can think of that you were just dreading and was glad it was over?
Oh.
Hopefully Wonderfest.
No. I think just about every project gets to that point. You know, they all start out as fun, and you know, you try to keep the fun going, and as long as you can, and as much as you can. But it inevitably
Transitions to work.
It inevitably, you know, comes time to, you know, where it needs to be finished, you know, and, you know, they're calling, and, you know, is it done yet? And, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, you know, and you've got to push, and, you know, it turns into work.
Do you ever get commissioned to do any kind of graphic design that's not comics or movies?
Not really. Not really, you know, I mean, I've got,
You know, if you get
I've been at it for long enough, I guess, that you know, people have a sense of what I can do, what I can't do, you know.
Do you ever feel there's anything you truly can't do?
I can't draw a car to save my life. I hate drawing cars. I hate drawing buildings, you know, and, you know, just think about drawing a building, just draw the same window, you know, over and over and over. They've got to be exactly right. They gotta, you know, it's.
What other movies have you done designs for?
My first was Ghostbusters, way back. And since then, movies that have actually been made. No, I've done a lot of work on movies that just never got made. It's the nature of the business. Or so they tell me. You know. I hope it's not because the drawings were so bad. You know, they said, "Oh, I'm not going to make this thing." Yeah.
Didn't you do design work for the Green Goblin for Spider-Man?
Did a lot of work on the Green Goblin that never made it to the screen. Yeah, we
It was much better than what they did.
well, we thought so. You know, we had some pretty cool ideas for the Green Goblin, and you know, when the movie came out, I don't know who made the decision, but you know, it was like Robo Goblin.
It was
you know,
like
and
Mecha Green Goblin.
Right.
yeah, I just felt like, geez, you know, I've seen this before a lot. You know, we were trying to come up with things that hadn't been done before. You know, but you know, it's not my movie.
For the work you do on the films that never made it to screen, do you still get paid?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Bernie one?
Cash up front.
Yeah. No, that's part of the business is, you know, yeah, you don't work for nothing. I mean, you know, this is the best job in the world. I love this, you know, just sitting at a drawing table and making stuff up. And if I was a plumber or a carpenter or, you know, doing some other kind of work, I think I would still, you know, come home in the evening and draw, you know, just for myself. But, you know, this is what I do for a living. So, you know, of course, you know, I expect to be paid for it. And, you know, I expect to be paid as well as I can, you know, for what I'm doing. It's how I make a living, you know. And, you know, I've got bills just like everybody else, you know.
A few minutes ago, referring to your Frankenstein work, you said it didn't bother you, you did your best work 25 years ago. Were you being disingenuous?
No,
Really?
no.
What makes you say that you were better 25 years ago than you are now?
I was.
Yeah, just the patience.
You know, I don't know what happened over the years, you know, but I just forgot. I forgot how I did it. You know, I look back on you know, work that I did in the 70s and the 80s. And you know, I just marvel at, you know, how much I knew back then that I don't know anymore.
You don't know anymore, or that you don't practice anymore?
I think I just forgot it, you know.
Interesting.
And you know, maybe it's early Alzheimer's or something. I don't know, you know. But you know, I mean, I can't remember names anymore, or phone numbers, you know. And you know, I forget faces. I forget people that I know. And it's, yeah, you know, something's, yeah, the little rooms don't connect anymore, you know.
I want to ask a technical question. You're holding the pencil in a very classical sense, like charcoal. Is that how you normally do a drawing, or is this just for the demonstration?
No, I used to hold a pencil like, you know, just like anybody else, like, you know, writing. About 15 years ago, I broke my wrist. And, you know, it was not anything really bad, you know, it was great, but it was bad enough that the bones, when the bones healed, they warped. So when I got out of the cast, you know, and I tried to draw like this, it hurts. So, you know, I just had to readapt.
Where your name carries a certain price tag.
Yeah.
You don't have to put effort into it.
Yeah.
And over time, you just have a certain range of effort that you put into it, because you don't have to.
And yeah.
I didn't have to go back to it.
And I'm just as lazy as anybody else.
You know, I found it interesting when you said you weren't too interested in the superhero ideology because they're not real, and yet the monsters that you can turn out.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Monsters are real.
Kick out
What do you mean monsters are real?
Yeah.
Take
You're in the wrong place, pal.
I will say Spider-Man Hooky is the reason I became a comic fan.
No, you know, that it was fun. It was fun, you know. But you know that was one of those jobs that really turned into work. You know, when I did that, I had never drawn Spider-Man before. And,
Right.
You know, and I looked at his Spider-Man, and you know, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, and all the red parts. You know, he just keeps drawing the webs until he's covered it with webs. You know. And when I had the story pencil and I took it in, you know, they said, oh, no, you don't do that. You know, there's a system here. You have to count the webs. And there's a very specific way of placing these webs on his mask. And jeez, what a pain in the neck, you know, and I just had to go back and you know, just draw all these webs. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried to draw Spider-Man. I tell you, those webs don't work. You know, they don't connect. You know, when you know they wrap around his head and come down to the neck, suddenly there are more webs on his neck than there ever are, you know, on the top and the sides of his head. And they had the same problem in the movies. The costume designer was driving himself crazy, you know, trying to connect these webs. You know, until I went in and talked to him. You know, I said, "Listen, it's nothing you're doing. You know, this design is awful. They cheat. You know, you're gonna have to cheat."
It's like MC Escher designed costume.
Yeah.
It goes nowhere.
Yeah. Like all his other close friends who knew what he had in mind, you know, I spent the last 10 years trying to think of some other ending, you know. Couldn't come up with anything, you know. It was like, you know, it's either, you either end it this way or you end it like it was in the book where it didn't actually end. You know, it just kind of went, which would be really unsatisfying.
Just jotting it
for
down
audience,
about
you
what's
know.
happening, so.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, I loved it. I loved it. I thought, you know, wow, this really is a horror movie. You know, it's just, it's hopeless. It's like, you know, Night of the Living Dead or Thing. You know, it's just, it's over. It's over, man.
Cross-hatching at all, no lines cross at all, as far as I can tell. It's all single lines that just sort of share.
Cross-hatching always seemed a little messy.
Yeah.
To me, you know.
But to take a glass beaker or test tube and see the, you know, clear glass is being created without outer line, it's all about line.
It's amazing, you know, like I said, you know, I look at that now and think, you know, my God, you know, how did I ever have the guts?
It must have done a number of times. All those years, I mean,
Well, no, it did.
ice cream, Visine, how many gallons of Visine did you?
It did, I mean, yeah, I blew my eyes out, you know, real good at doing
I
that
just think
stuff.
that's such a courageous project to take on, really. But, I mean, anybody that has the Frankenstein stuff, or to go by Bernie's table, just look at it and find any two lines that cross. They're all just sharing space. They don't do that, they just do that everywhere. No two lines cross each other.
So you were creating all its own effects with just the pressure on your, that was a pen, I guess, right?
I'm sorry.
That was a pen, that was mostly pen work?
Frankenstein.
What was it, project?
Oh, Frankenstein was all pen. It was all pen. But it was very, very flexible pen nib.
Were those,
It was a Gillot 291. I'll never forget. Yeah, you know, I used to buy them by the box. Well, the reason was that they were so fine. The points were so fine that out of 5 nibs, you'd only find one that would work. You know, give you a fine line and actually hold the nib. So, you know, I was buying them by the box because, you know, they cost like 2 cents each.
Now that you've become an icon, have you met anyone since that you're just, you know, like when you talked about Stephen King calling you out of the blue, you're just like, oh, wow, I'm proud of it. Is that, I mean, now that you are Bernie Wrightson.
Oh, you know, yeah, no, you know, I'm still, you know, starstruck. You know, meeting, you know, Guillermo del Toro was a thrill, you know. We went to see a private screening of Pan's Labyrinth a couple of weeks before it opened in theaters. I had no idea about this movie because, you know, I had known Guillermo before that. And I had no idea what the movie was about or that, you know, it was going to be, you know, just as gorgeous and as beautiful and as haunting as it is. And one of the people in the audience was Jeff Goldblum, you know. And, you know, I frankly went crazy, you know, Jeff Goldblum, oh my God.
Do you live in California or do you live close to the movie production?
I'm in, yeah, Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley. Little Lulu. and Donald Duck comics, you know, which
Just
I
'cause
also.
of covers?
Hmm?
Your mom didn't like the covers?
She knew just by looking that a kid should not be reading. You know? So you know, I had to be sneaky, and you know, I had to go down and read them at, you know, the candy store on the corner, and just not bring them home. We had a great system at our local candy store. You could go in and rent a comic for 2 cents. You know, they had a little dish, you know, and you put your pennies in there and you could rent the comic and you know, read it in the store and then put it back. It was great. They had a big window, big show window in the front. They built window seats around. So, you know, it was always full of kids, you know, sitting around reading comics. You know, it varies. You know, I like a lot of different mediums, and you know, I love working in brush and ink. You know, inking comics and drawing comics, and I'm really into that right now. And I know it's not going to last. You know, it's gonna reach a point of overload, and I'm going to want to do something else. You know, and then I'll go, you know, into painting. You know, and you know, like work with watercolors or acrylics or whatever, and you know, just be really enthusiastic about that, and eventually that burns out, you know, and I want to get back into something else. So you know, it's a cyclical thing, and you know, I'm just happy not to be stuck with just one thing.
Is it hard though, because you've got a reputation, and especially your line work, that when somebody hires you for a job, and do they have expectations of you that are uncomfortable for you to deal with?
You know, it's not uncomfortable for me. I don't know how they feel, you know.
But do you have to have a little sit down with them and say, this is how I'm working now, this is the style I'm working in now? And
Occasionally.
don't ask me to be
Occasionally,
Swamp
you know, I
Thing
did.
1970.
No, I did a miniseries a year or two ago called City of Others, and it was all done in pencil because at the time that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw in pencil. About halfway through that, all the attraction of working exclusively with pencil began to wear off, you know. And you know, I was looking at it thinking, damn it, I wish I could ink the last 2 issues of this, but you know, then you know, it's going to be a consistency problem. You know, it's going to suddenly, you know, the last 2 issues are going to look so much different than the first 2. You know, I just didn't want to, you know, so I thought, oh, okay, no, I'll just finish it out in pencil. And the next thing I did was you know, with ink. And you know, that's what I'm doing currently. Yeah.
Do you typically ink right on top of your pencils, or use like vellum or anything? Or?
No, I just work directly, you know, on top.
Do you have mistakes often, or how? I mean, do you just like white out, or do you work around it? Or
No. You know, I use white out for you know, yeah. Very often, you know, to correct mistakes, you know, I use, you know, like liquid paper, or, you know, whatever. And, you know, sometimes, you know, intentionally, sometimes, you know, use the white out for,
do you just apply
like
it?
doing rain or something, you know.
How do you, like when you're correcting a mistake, I mean, how do you apply it? Do you have like a special brush or something, or because I mean, using the thing that comes out of the cap, is that necessarily?
That's all I need, you know, it's got the little sponge brush on it, the little applicator, you know.
That works out.
That's fine. Yeah.
When you ask that, I thought of the guys that are in the war movies, and they say, if we get out of this, the rest of our life is gravy. And I was thinking of you finishing Frankenstein, and nothing else, it's the rest of my life is going to be gravy. You're not going to worry about little whiteout mistakes on regular comic anymore.
There's actually very little whiteout in Frankenstein.
I bet there is.
Because at the time, I thought of whiteout as cheating, you know? So, you know, it's like, nope, I refuse, I'm not gonna do it. Yeah.
Oh, man.